Hello, my name is Ian Pape and I'm a solutions consultant with Serraview. Today we're going to walk through a high-level demonstration of our workplace management solutions in order to give you a solid understanding of how we help companies around the world manage their workplaces. I'd like to begin here and cover a few critical concepts before we get into the solution itself. For many of our clients, the first challenge to address is understanding what workplace and space resources they currently have available to them. And keeping this information accurate and up-to-date is a constant challenge that will never really go away. Serraview helps our clients streamline this ongoing workplace management lifecycle, and we start that process by measuring what is currently in the portfolio. Our system works seamlessly with AutoCAD to pull drawings directly into Serraview, where the system will gather information such as square footage, space classifications, and the number of work points, which we'll discuss in just a moment. We also utilize the CAD files to make our UI intuitive and engaging, as well as enhancing many of the configurable reports included with the system. To help clients keep their data up to date, we have our workplace portal, which is used by both the space planning team, as well as the occupants themselves to audit their spaces based on their permissions, of course. Serraview can also gather data from a wide variety of supported beacons and sensors, utilizing IoT data to track how people are actually utilizing their spaces. And based on what we learn from measuring the portfolio, we can then plan for the inevitable changes in space needs and supply, as well as working towards optimizing the resources available to us. Our visual block and stack tool allows our users to get a deeper understanding of their spaces, displaying occupancy and utilization data for the entire building, a single floor, a single team, an entire department, and everything in between. Rather than limiting reporting to just one tab or section within our system, our reports are located where they're needed, sprinkled throughout the system as our users work through their daily tasks. While smaller updates can be easily made using the visual block and stack tool, when planning for larger scale moves, our clients utilize our scenario planner, which allows them to see the effects of broad sweeping changes to seating across all of their properties at once without affecting any live data. And once we've decided on that plan, it's time to take action and implement the strategies that are going to make the best use of your spaces. Smaller changes to seating are often driven by user requests, which are tracked and fulfilled using our service request tool. We've also created integrations with ServiceNow, 360 Facility, and other leading tools to further streamline the process of providing users with the spaces that they need to excel in your organization. Larger scale changes start as a scenario plan, and once approved, are converted into a MAC project to track the details of those moves, such as chairs, equipment, and responsibility for each participant who's participating in the process. Finally, we'll take all the information that the space team has been utilizing to drive optimization and allow the entire company to benefit from that data by enabling them. We provide our clients with intuitive and detailed dashboards, which are often used by the executive team to monitor performance across the entire portfolio. And every employee can benefit from our locator tool, which helps users find other employees on the floor map, look up contact information, find a hotel desk, and even locate a meeting room with a conference phone, seating for 6, and a projector screen, all 5 minutes before the start of the call. Now that we've discussed how Serraview fits into the workplace lifecycle management, let's talk a bit about some of the features that we'll be seeing in the demo. We'll cover how we use the space planning tool to view CAD files, how we use the workplace portal to keep that occupancy data up to date and accurate in order to enable us to work faster. We'll use the VBS to understand occupancy and utilization at a deep level, as well as making small changes to seating. Next, we'll look at how users can request changes within the system using our service request feature, how our space management team can execute those requests, whether the scope is a single person or 10,000, and how our system can simplify the complexity of moves, adds, and changes. Throughout the presentation, we'll see how reporting can enhance the functionality of our tools, leading up to our interactive executive dashboards. And finally, we'll look at the mobile apps used to find people, desks, and shared spaces like conference rooms and workshops. All right, without further ado, Let's get into the system. Like many software as a service platforms, users are greeted with a splash screen when they enter into the system based on the permissions they have associated with their user. Clients are entirely in charge of the permission sets for their users, so each user can be configured specific to their responsibility within the company. For most of the demonstration, I'll be logged in as an administrator user like the one we're looking at right now, so I'll have access to a lot more of the program than most of the average users will have. We'll start at our space mapping tool, which is part of the portfolio manager. As you can see, the space mapping tool has already gone ahead and color-coded the entire AutoCAD file based on how those individual spaces are currently being utilized. We can see that most of the floor is marked blue as workplace. These are fairly standard workspaces, such as desks, offices, and cubicles grouped together. We often refer to these individual spots where a single user might work a full 8-hour day as a work point within the system. This is just a shorthand that we came up with in order to help our space teams accurately scope out their spaces faster in the size of teams, rather than having to figure out exactly what 400 square feet of office space means in each particular retail market. But of course, all the information on these pages isn't going to be simply color-coded maps. Each of the spaces, whether it's a desk or a conference room or a locker or a cafeteria or anything else within the system, is going to have its own page of data dedicated to that specific space. Here we can see that this space is coded as a meeting room, and it has 4 seats associated with it, and it's 111 square feet. We can also see additional attributes about the meeting room, such as the projector screen and conference phone that we might need in a meeting later. And for any fields that are not covered by our system, clients can add additional custom fields using the Admin tab. In this way, our clients can adapt their system to their changing needs as they move forward. If there's a need for new data to be tracked in 3 months, administrators can set that up without incurring additional fees. And of course, we're not going to make you click through each individual space to look for information within the system. Rather, much easier to simply search. So, when trying to find my coworker John, I'm given a list of different Johns in the building. In particular, I'm looking for John Haynes, so I'll click on his name. The system immediately takes me to John's floor. And I can also see some information about John in the bottom left that's being pulled in by our HR integration. Here we can see John's title, where he sits in the organization hierarchy, and some contact information for him as well. And each time I click on John's name, the system highlights his seat with that pulse of red light. So it's always easy to find people, no matter how dense the cubicle farm is. And all the data we're talking about is extremely portable and easy to get out of the system as well. I mentioned earlier that we have reports sprinkled throughout the system, and this is one example of where we can find those reports. In this situation, I've configured the system to give me this specific set of 5 reports, as these are the most relevant to the tasks that I'm typically performing in this section of the system. We'll go ahead and run the floor plan block report. And while that's running, go ahead and make a couple of changes. For example, maybe we want to see how this floor is allocated based on the organization units. And as I zoom in, we can see the spaces on the floor changing based on which organization unit it's mapped to. We can also see that the report has been completed in the top right, so we can go ahead and open that up. And here we can see the same floor plan with similar information presented in a similar format. So I can see for each of the individual teams on this floor a flag indicating where they're sitting. And then as I scroll down, I can also see all this information broken down into a table with a list of all the teams on the floor, which portion of the organization they report up to, and then how they're currently utilizing the space that's been allocated to them. Any occupied space and unoccupied space as well. All of these reports can be scheduled to be sent to users within the system or any email address outside of the system based on your needs. Now that we've seen how we organize this information within the space mapping tool, let's take a look at the visual block and stack next so we can get a deeper understanding of how we're utilizing our buildings. We're now looking at the same building we were just a moment ago, but rather than looking at one particular floor, in our case, the last floor we looked at was the 11th floor. But instead, in this view, we're looking at the entire building at once, in addition to having access to the floor plans whenever we need them. And this panel over on the right side, our information panel, is very useful as well. Here we can see some information about the entire building. We have a total of 1,700 work points, 1,400 people, and based on our integration with the badge swipe system in this building, on its busiest day, the building saw 1,100 people come into the office. Now, all that information is very useful, but we can go one better. We can see that information based on an individual floor. So the 12th floor is about 130 work points, 95 people assigned, or an individual team, or a group of teams, which I can select by holding down Shift. Additionally, we can drill down even further and see a breakdown of all the teams that we've selected and how those teams are utilizing the spaces that are assigned to them, a list of all the people in which desks they're assigned to, and a list of the spaces that have been allocated to these different teams, with additionally a breakdown based on how much square footage they're taking up for each of those individual space types. So as you can see, you can very easily get a deep understanding of how you're utilizing your space within the visual block and stack system. Now, when it comes to keeping this information up to date, I mentioned earlier that we have a dedicated tool for that, our workplace portal. And I mentioned earlier as well, the workplace portal is designed to be used by either the space team, team managers, executive assistants, or anyone that you give the permission to. In this case, we're once again looking at the 11th floor of Broadway, and our user, who is not an admin in this case, has been assigned a group of 3 teams that they need to validate. So let's walk through the process of validating one team. We'll select the team to get some upfront information about it. I can see that there's 11 desks assigned to the team and 9 people. Here I can see a list of the people. I can also see the space highlighted on the floor, so we'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit and get a closer look at our Europe, Middle East, and Africa team. Now, if I notice, for example, that one of the members of the team isn't seated where they're assigned on the floor map, I can simply move them to their correct seat by simply dragging and dropping the name. So updating information is very easy as well. You may also notice that some of our seats don't actually have people assigned to them and are instead marked with some gold words. In this case, new starter and contractor. This is an example of our retention status. In this situation, we've marked those 2 seats as retained by the team leader, even though they're not assigned to a particular person. This allows us to increase the level of accountability in how our different teams are utilizing our spaces. We want to know when a new starter is starting, but we equally want to know if that new starter has been starting for the last 6 months. And the validation process helps keep everyone accountable in how they use their spaces. Once we've confirmed the information within the system, we can click Validate and send that data back into our visual block and stack tool. Currently, we have the tool configured to show us how each different organization unit is taking up space on each of our floors. But we can change that right now to instead show us which teams have updated their information most recently. So we'll change from the org unit 1 level to the team level. And now we can see each of the individual teams rather than the org units they report up to. And then we'll see how often those teams have been validating their information within the system. There we go. So now we can see the teams marked in green have validated their information in the last month. So I can easily assign spaces to them knowing that they're currently utilizing the space they already have. The other teams haven't done so recently. So this might be something that I email them about or message them about through our system. Now that we've handled getting information into the system and keeping that information accurate and up to date moving forward, the next step is often making changes to the system. And as I mentioned earlier, often these changes are generated by user requests within our system. These requests can be viewed at any time on a building level, as well as for a particular user within the system. We can see the service request at the building level by opening the service request tab on the right side. And now we can see each individual service request that has been assigned to this particular building. The option to create new service requests within the system can also be granted to users based on permissions. So if, for example, one of my team leads would like to move some of his team to a new floor from the 11th floor down to the 8th floor, he might submit a request in the system similar to this one. We'll give a proposed due date as well. We can go ahead and submit that into the system. Once the request is submitted, our space team can begin acting on it. Now, for the larger scale change that we described in that service request, we'll actually be using a different tool. So first, we'll take a look at a smaller scale change, just taking a couple of seats away from a team, for example. So we'll zoom in on the map a little bit so we can see better. Select our global functions team, and we'll use the eraser tool to reclaim some spaces from the team. And it's as easy as dragging and clicking around the space on the floor map. If we want to undo that action, we can simply remap those spaces to the team again. And as you can see at each change, the size of the team changes on the stack, as well as the number of unallocated spaces. So making small changes is very easy in our system. Next, as I mentioned, for the larger scale changes, we have a dedicated tool, our scenario planning tool. In the scenario planning tool, we'll generate a copy of each of the buildings that we include in the scope. We can use those copies of our data to make large scale changes within the system without affecting the live data. We can also include any number of phases to our scenario plan. If we happen to be moving to a building that's under construction or where a portion of the building will only be available after some time. In our case, though, we'll do one phase in a single building. As soon as I click Create, the system creates a second tab over on the left side, creating our scenario plan and separating it from our live data. We can still access the live data at any point, of course, by clicking on the tab on the left. For now, though, we're looking at our scenario plan tab. And the first screen we see is our truck screen, which is going to give us a list of all the different actions that we take as a part of our scenario plan. Because this is a brand new plan, the screen is blank at the moment, but it'll be much more interesting in just a few minutes. All right. So now that we're within our scenario plan, and all of our changes will not be affecting our live data, we can start making some larger scale changes. Let's address the request that Dan asked of us to move his team from the 11th floor down to the 8th floor. First, we'll make some space on the 8th floor for him by pushing our finance team into the scratch pad. The scratch pad is a temporary storage space within this system. It allows you to make space on your floor and plans without having to spend a lot of time figuring out exactly where everyone is going to go in the end. So now that we've got some space for our global functions team, we'll go ahead and drag and drop them down to the 8th floor. And now we have one very large global functions team on the 8th floor. But as you might notice, the bar for the global functions team is split into two shades, a darker shade and a lighter shade. The darker shade indicates that this portion of the team has already been seated on the floor map, which we can see over on the left side. So next, our task is going to be to seat the other portion of the team that we just moved from the 8th floor, and we're going to seat them on the right side of this floor plan by simply dragging and dropping them onto the floor map itself. Now, as I move my cursor around, the system will find the largest contiguous block of spaces to assign to the team. Once I'm satisfied with the configuration, I simply let go, and the spaces are assigned. Now that's a good example of one small scale change that we can make using the visual block and stack and scenario planning tool. But we can go much larger and affect the entire building. For example, if I wanted to do a more significant restack of the building, I can select all the floors and then use our tools to set the stack to occupants. Now, what this means is that I will set each individual team only to the spaces that they currently have assigned to employees within the company. Any spaces that are assigned to the team but aren't assigned to an employee will be returned to my stack so that I can use them in my plan. As we can see, the stack changed pretty significantly, and now we've got a lot more room to work with. Now I can move my retail products team up to the 12th floor. Global practices can move up there as well. And then I can take the finance team and move them down to the 7th floor. And in just a handful of clicks, I was able to affect hundreds of users and clear an entire floor of my building, which might end up saving my company thousands of dollars in rent. And all of the actions that we've been taking have been tracked on our truck screen. Each individual team that's been affected by our moves has their own line item entry. And we can zoom in on any of those individual entries and see more information. For example, the client privacy team started in the top left corner of the 11th floor, and they ended up in the top right corner of the 8th floor. We can see the list of different work points that they gave up on the 11th floor, and which ones were claimed on the 8th. We can also see a list of dependencies for the individual team move. So our retail distribution network team and our auto finance team will need to be moved out of the way so the client privacy team can take that space. And the system keeps track of all of this for us so that we don't have to keep track of the details ourselves. Once the scenario plan has been confirmed with management, you can then change it into a boss plan to execute it. Often, this is done many months after you originally create the scenario plan, so there might be changes made to the system in that time period in between when you created the plan and when you're ready to execute it. In that situation, each time you load the existing scenario plan, the system will check all of the current live data and check it against the list of changes that you're making, allowing you to true up any differences between the two. This means that you can create a scenario plan for a move that might be years off and have that plan updated immediately in moments. Once you've confirmed the plan and you're ready to execute it, we then change the scenario plans into boss projects to execute them. The boss project keeps track of all the details of the move, exactly which seat is going to be assigned to each employee affected by the move, and each employee will have their own line item entry in the interface. The equipment that is going to be moving with the employee, including furniture, computers, and phones as well. And this screen is entirely configurable using our permission system, meaning that we can assign each portion of this screen to the relevant user. For example, our manager, Dan, might be in charge of assigning each individual user a seat within the new space that's been assigned to his team. Once all this information is correct, each user will have their own email generated by the system detailing their move, similar to this. Here we can see an email telling my user that he will be moving to 100 Broadway, the 12th floor, and the following workstation. We also can include information like moving instructions and contact information for the users. We also include with each email a personalized map for each individual employee, showing that employee's new location on the floor map. So everyone can easily find their new location, and we can minimize the amount of inefficiency caused by moving day. Now that we've covered how we keep information within our system, and also how we make changes to the occupancy data within the system, let's next talk about how we enable the rest of our user base to gain benefit from all this wonderful data that our system is storing. First, we use our dashboard system to help executives drill down into every portion of their portfolio. For example, if I wanted to see how my finance team was utilizing the space assigned to them across my entire organization, or how specifically they're using the space assigned to them in North America, or one particular region in North America. And we can even drill down to individual buildings and floors using this interface. So as the user clicks through the system will reconfigure and show different cross-sections of data based on the selections. This is great for the executive team to quickly understand how their portfolio is being utilized. But for the rest of the employees, they also are able to gain benefit from the data within our system using our locator tool. The locator tool allows the employee to search for spaces, people, and desks within their floor plan. In our case, we've started by taking a look at one particular floor on the 10th floor of an office building on Wall Street. Here we can see all the spaces on the floor, and we can click each space individually to reserve it if we like, using our integration with Outlook, and we can also see the availability of the room as well. We can search through all the rooms available on the floor too. So if I need a meeting for 30 minutes, my meeting will have 4 people in it. And this meeting is going to be relatively serious. We need to have some privacy, so we'll use a meeting room rather than a breakout space. As I make these choices, the system filters down the list of rooms that are available for me. Here I can see the best choice is likely going to be Victoria, the room that I clicked on a moment ago. We can also see other locations at other buildings that might meet our needs. If we need to find a person on the floor plan, we can click the Find a Person tab. And here the system will show us a list of all the people currently in the office. In our case, we've integrated our locator with Wi-Fi, so I can see where each user is based on their Wi-Fi signal. I can also click on individual seats to see which user is assigned to that seat as well. Finally, we have the Find a Desk functionality, which helps users find hotel spaces and empty desks that they might need when visiting another office. Each of the desks currently not in use is highlighted, and I can click and reserve the desks as well. So now that I have my reservation, I can go claim my desk, log in, and start working. That concludes our video and all the features some of the features that we have available within Serraview. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for watching this video. I hope that I've been able to give you a good understanding of Serraview and its value proposition. Have a great day.